The bat signal has gone up in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You can call him the son of a Sooner legend. You can call him a future phenom in the state of Oklahoma. You can call him Kaden, KD, Batman Jones. Call him what you want to call him, but at the end of the day, you better call him a Cowboy.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome into this live edition as we get to talk about the newest announcement of a latest Cowboy commit of running back. The number one running back in the state of Oklahoma, the number 2 overall player in the state of Oklahoma, who's rushed for almost 2,800 yards in the last couple of years alone, puts up a 1,300-yard season at Broken Arrow, goes to Jinx, puts up another 1,500-yard season with them. This is not to mention the return game specialist that he can be, or his ability in the wide receiver game, which is why Trayson Wallace was involved in this recruiting. We got to give a massive shout-out to not only Mike Gundy, but, of course, Doug Meacham was instrumental in this process, as was Trayson Wallace, and Jeremy Smith, the former Cowboy who had the pleasure of coaching Kaden Batman Jones when he was at Broken Arrow. They've continued a relationship. They've also continued some semblance of working together, and he has been instrumental in helping kind of lean Kaden to this direction. Now, of course, most of us are aware that Kaden Batman Jones' dad was a legend, Kewan Jones at OU. So he was an OU lean for such a long time. But now the fact that he's an Oklahoma State Cowboy, it does, in my opinion, accentuate the fact that there was any reservations in regards to how this new staff is going to do in recruiting. I feel like those answers are already done now. Aiden Martin, number 1 offensive tackle in the state of Oklahoma. He's also a Cowboy commit. In a large portion of conversational pieces, when new coaches come into a university, the number one thing they want to do is lock down the state, regardless of what state it is, even if that state isn't massively beneficial to the recruiting process, to building young athletes. You have to lock down your state typically in order to have success. Oklahoma State hasn't ever really had the opportunity to lock down the state. I'm not saying that we are by landing this commitment, but I think this is somewhat resembling last year where CJ Nixon didn't even have Oklahoma State in his top 10, top 15. And then all of a sudden we made a mad dash after hiring Paul Randolph to get into his top 3. Now, naturally, he did decide to choose OU, and this is still somewhat early in the process. But Kaden Batman Jones coming to Oklahoma State, I think not only keeps the RBU conversation alive, and there's going to be some haters that pretend that Oklahoma State's not part of that, but look at the success we've had recently with the Jalen Warrens and the Chuba Hubbards and the Justice Hills and the Chris Carsons and the Tyreek Hills of the world. Producing running backs in Stillwater and getting them to the NFL level has never really been a question. You can make the same exact argument at wide receiver. We've been making grounds in that conversational piece as it pertains to linebackers, but this is absolutely massive for not only Oklahoma State, of course, getting the top in-state running back, getting one of the top talents in the state of Oklahoma while having to stave off a legacy OU lean. It's a big deal, but it proves that this staff is showing themselves to have more capabilities in recruiting than the previous staffs. The idea of keeping coaches together for 10, 15, 19, 20 years, it is phenomenal when it comes to consistency. But sometimes that can lead to complacency, and we just witnessed that. We had to hit the ground running in the recruiting process as we're building towards some level of anticipation for the 2025 season. This is absolutely massive for Oklahoma State, and I think this does kind of come on the right timing of Mike Gundy mentioning there needs to be a spring game of a Bedlam variety coming back in. Even if OU fans maybe want to, on the outside, pretend that it's not a great idea, some of these storylines kind of write themselves. Who doesn't want to see Kendall Daniels go up against Caleb Hicks? Who wouldn't want to see Kendall Daniels have the ability to kind of catch Gavin Freeman in a little bit of a crossing route? That is good for everybody in the state of Oklahoma, and this is good for the state of Oklahoma in general. What we do not want to have happen is some of these top guys leaving the state. Am I excited when some of the best players in the state of Oklahoma decide that they're going to go to OU? No, not really, but it is better than having the top in-state talent decide they're going to go play for Arkansas or Bama or even Texas. I cannot stand when that happens. So not only do we keep somebody in-state, but this does, in my opinion, build a little bit more momentum towards us having a spring game. It's beneficial for Oklahoma State. It's beneficial for OU. It's beneficial for the entire state. And one of the reasons is because of these stories. When you're an in-state fan of high school football, whether you like OSU or OU or Tulsa, you're going to want to see somebody like Kaden Batman Jones excel, much like Justice Hill was able to do. If you can see somebody do that in the state of Oklahoma, stay in state for college, and then spread their wings in the NFL, that is exactly how you can get more NIL dollar bills. That's how you can get more interested in the transfer portal process. This staff is doing things that we haven't done previously. This staff is clearly showing that they have the ability to get in on dudes that we haven't always had the ability to get in on. This SEC model, this NFL model that they're bringing over, I think you're seeing a lot of that, right? Kaden Batman Jones did even mention in a recent interview when he talked about getting down to his top 5, which Oklahoma State was not a part of, right? When he released his top 5, top 8, top 10, Oklahoma State was never in the picture. But with this new staff, we were able to show him and his dad and his entire family, these are the benefits to coming to Oklahoma State. And as he mentioned in that most recent interview, there's something happening in Stillwater that just makes you want to be a part of it. That doesn't mean it's going to be great, doesn't mean it's going to be terrible. It just simply means that we're doing something that has people interested. There's a certain level of intrigue that is now happening in Stillwater that we didn't have previously. Not a knock on the old staff per se, but they were more worried about the checks and balances system as opposed to getting straight dogs. And when I did have a conversation with Jeremy Smith about Kaden Batman Jones, one of the things that he relayed to me that you're now seeing is Oklahoma State sometimes had a reluctancy to go after pure dogs. Sometimes they wanted to get the prim and proper types and hopefully see them morph into that dog mentality. Kaden is the epitome of an absolute savage on the field and a true potential professional athlete off the field. So again, we're talking about NIL. We're talking about viability, marketability, eyeballs. The spring game of the Bedlam variety would do that because of the Kendall Daniels, the Gavin Freemans, the Kaden Jones, the Trace Fords. Those are the storylines that are great for the state. Us keeping an in-state talent like this is not only huge for everybody in the state of Oklahoma, but I think this does, again, show that Oklahoma State is capable of recruiting at different levels. We just had to expand what we were looking at and expand who we were looking for. It's not always about checking off all of the boxes. Sometimes you have to go beyond that. Sometimes you have to do an investigation to figure out, is the terminology you're hearing on one particular kid the same off field as it is on field? Does he have the ability to flip a switch? Because sometimes that's not always a bad thing. I think Mike Gundy has had some reluctancy because we've been burned. We haven't really had a whole lot of really high unanimous 4-star gets or 5-star gets. And sometimes when we do get the 5-star guys, they don't work out and they don't even last a year in Stillwater. So he's avoided that, I think, pretty safely for a long time. But Todd Grantham, Doug Meacham, they're viewing this from a completely different lens. The NFL pedigree that they've brought over is very visible right now. You're seeing some of the guys take unofficial visits of the 5-star, high 4-star caliber that are seriously interested. And now this is even bigger for all of us because what Kaden can do is something similar to what maybe we were getting out of Landon Cleveland. And even previously this last year, Jalen Beckley. You got to have a cornerstone, a catalyst that can help keep a class together. But not only that, recruit new dudes. Recruit more guys to come from Jinx or Union or Owasso or Bixby that have grown up playing 7-on-7 against or with Kaden Jones. These are where these conversations typically come forth even more so than we see in the public eye. What they're talking about in 7-on-7 and whenever they do their Coca-Cola Classic style of conversations, they're talking about what is brewing at certain universities. Well, I went on this visit and I love these coaches. And if you're about to go on this visit, you're going to absolutely love these coaches and these players. Stillwater is building something right now that is very evident by some of these individuals that we're getting. And I think it can be even more accentuated now with the recruiting capabilities that not only Kaden Jones has, but this is where we get to tiptoe into this Bedlam conversation. His dad has connections out the wazoo as well. So does that mean we could potentially get more individuals involved because of this commitment? I think it's a no-brainer. This is exactly what Oklahoma State needed to convey to the world that we're not the same university. We're not the same crew that was recruiting previously. We don't recruit the same way. We don't coach the same way. We don't think the same way. This is a new age of Cowboy football recruiting. This is the catalyst that could launch that into a completely different stratosphere. Speaking of launching into new stratospheres, you have to be able to do that no matter what industry you're in. Supply House is where you need to go for all of your needs, whenever you're trying to get the trinkets and things around the house or commercially knocked out. You're going to be able to get supplies you need from the site made for the most skilled tradesmen at Supply House. Whether you're in the plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way for you to get your products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you're going to find exactly what you're looking for delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros out here, if you're looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it is your turn to do the same. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few short clicks. Use this promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. Go there today to get squared away. So this isn't a show where we're going to kind of do a bunch of bouncing around. This is all about Kaden Badman Jones. And again, we were kind of tiptoeing in the first segment about the new levels of recruiting this could potentially open. When you do have a cornerstone like a Landon Cleveland or a Jalen Beckley or a Michael Riles, of course that is good. But we typically get those guys later in the recruiting portal process. You have to go back to Talon Shetron. And I feel like this is a reminiscent conversation. When Talon Shetron decided to flip from OU to Oklahoma State, that was the last time we had a top 30 nationally ranked recruiting class. And because he was able to flip his commitment, I think that there was a conversational piece being had about why Oklahoma State was an intriguing prospect for Talon Shetron. And it did allow us to have one of the top classes in the Big 12 and a top 25 level recruiting class nationally. But we didn't even get him as early as we're getting Kaden Jones. So the timing of this seems to be relevant to the conversation of what is the new staff doing? How are they able to open these doors? And I think it's directly reflective of the SEC and NFL pedigree that these coaches have. I hate giving flowers to the SEC, but whenever you bring in coaches that have spent years in the SEC and decade plus in the NFL, they view things a little bit differently, especially if they've had stops where they've been successful and not as successful, right? Todd Grantham specifically gets that acronym thrown around of third and Grantham from his time at Florida State. But statistically speaking, what they were able to do outside of third down speak for itself. Then he goes back to the NFL, and he takes that model here to Oklahoma State. I think there was some questions in regards to, could Doug Meacham do the same thing? Could Doug Meacham be an individual that brings that NFL level pedigree that we know we're getting out of the defensive guys? Perhaps when you're seeing Trayson Wallace out helping recruiting, and not to mention Corey Patterson. Guys, this is a coach that we know, Mike Gundy, understands you have to keep the running back tradition rich at Oklahoma State, just like you have to keep the wide receiver tradition rich at Oklahoma State. Bringing back a Doug Meacham, who recruited the likes of Brendan Pettigrew and Des Bryant and Justin Blackman, yeah, of course, that was a no-brainer. But to have Corey Patterson come over to maintain the level of running backs that is expected in Stillwater means that we did the checks and balances boxes for him specifically. We did the investigations. We had to make sure that the running back coach coming in was going to be as close as the physical possible embodiment of a home run. Corey Patterson has produced Doak Walker winning a level award recipient guys. He's produced Heisman race level guys. He's produced several NFL level dudes. And now he gets to kind of accentuate that he's here not only to stay, but make a name for himself. He understands that the lay of the land in Stillwater is to have productive running backs every single year. This is not optional. Having good running backs and having good wide receivers in Stillwater is not optional. It's not debatable. This isn't a conversation that the staff is even willing to have, nor should they. But you have to have guys that can help you do more recruiting, especially in state. Now, I do expect Oklahoma University to get back up on the horse. I think it's good for the Big 12 in general if OU and Texas are competitive in the SEC, especially this upcoming season with the schedule that OU has. I think it would be good, but it'd also be good for building the anticipation for a new spring game. This staff is doing insane things. And again, I think the timing here is imperative to the conversation. Now, KD can go out on 7-7. He can go out in the preseason. He can talk in the regular season. He can build more relationships because this is an early commit. Now that also offers a little layer of trepidation, right? Because when you have an early commit, things could change. It could shift. He could change his mind. But I do feel like that the immediate playing time that he could have gotten at either KU or Louisville proves that he's not afraid of competition. It also proves that he feels like what we're presenting to him in Stillwater makes the most amount of sense for his future success. Of course, I'm sure Rob Glass was part of this equation. Even Kaden Jones, his dad, understands that when you have somebody like Rob Glass with the raw talent, speed, and skill that Kaden Jones has, you're going to be able to get more out of that guy. When you have the Ollie Gordons and the Chuba Hubbards and the Justice Hills and the Tyreek Hills of the world doing things phenomenally in the NFL, you know you're going to be able to get that in Stillwater. So now the conversation becomes, what could be next? Could this be a piece that allows him to spread more of the word about what's happening in Stillwater, to show that the staff does do things differently now? We have more capabilities than we've had previously. We follow a different model. And I think another piece of this is the 105 roster limit, right? Getting down to 105 is not going to be easy for anybody in America. And the one thing that it does do is it forces more competition. So there cannot be complacency. There cannot be laziness, because if you're not doing precisely what you're supposed to, whether you're currently on scholarship or not, there's a very thin line of margin for error now. And Oklahoma State may not be able to offer immediate playing time capabilities like that of a KU or a Louisville, but that means Kaden Jones is more worried about being put in the right place to be successful, to have the most opportunities to catapult himself into the NFL as quickly as physically possible. That's going to happen in Stillwater. So now you have Rob Glass. Now you still have the legend of Mike Gundy. And again, I have given Mike Gundy a lot of flack over the last couple of years over bringing back Casey Dunn repeatedly, over bringing back Charlie Dickey repeatedly, Jason McIndoe. The list goes on and on. There were some coaches that were a liability. It was very, very obvious. You didn't have to have a degree and common sense to see that there were some deficiencies in the staff. So for Mike Gundy to go through what he went through the Board of Regents, and I don't necessarily think it was handled all the right way, but it did get the outcome that we needed, which is all new staff. And now you're seeing the benefits of that new staff. Again, I've been hearing that we are doing things a little bit different. We're recruiting at a different level. And now this is very, very visible. I'll tell you another thing. It is difficult to keep information like this on the down low for a long time. But nonetheless, it was never a for sure deal, right? There was always the understanding that what KU and Louisville offered was different than what Oklahoma State and even OU were able to offer. But at the end of the day, Kaden's a Cowboy. And now we have more capabilities to get in-state guys. Could we imagine the possibility of ever controlling the state of Oklahoma in recruiting? Because again, I'm not here to throw a bunch of shade at OU. There's times for that, right? But there's also times to be understanding that the state of Oklahoma, the current state of college football in general, needs stories like this. They need guys like this to excel and catapult themselves into the NFL. Previously, we had the individual coaching to get it done, but collectively, we weren't putting the NFL level talent on the field in a constructive way to get the most out of them, aside from 2021 defense. So does Todd Grantham have the ability to get us back to 21 defensive levels? Possibly. I think you're bringing in some major players to make this more viable of a conversation. But as running back, we likely, Trent Hallen, barring injury, is down to his final season in Stillwater. You're going to have the emergence of Rodney Fields. We just talked about Justice Hill coming from, the Tulsa area, the Oklahoma City area, to help bolster a phenomenal running back U conversation. So say you lose Trent Allen. Let's say that somebody like Assesi Vaialahe ends up transferring, even though there is some of that Jalen Warren-esque capabilities there, right? Same high school coach, same training regiment. He's following the same plan as Jalen, so perhaps we could see that flourish. But Rodney Fields already proved as a true freshman, it's going to be hard to keep that dude off the field. And we have Jaden Allen Hendricks coming in, another 6'3", 245-pound running back that should be able to fill that Chris Carson, Trent Allen, Elijah Collins style of role. So if you're going to have that thunder and lightning combo, Kaden Jones is the next in that evolutionary process. And one of the benefits I see in Kaden Jones is I do see him as that Justice Hill, Kennel Hunter type, kind of like Rodney Fields, that have already shown pretty early on they can do it all. They don't have to just be a 1-2 combination. They can be an every down back. Sometimes you want that third down specialist that can kind of catch passes out of the backfield and take things up the sidelines. But to have a Kaden Jones, to have a Rodney Fields that can do a little bit of everything, I think does prove that Oklahoma State is kind of at a different level right now. It's time for OU and everybody else in the country to begin embracing the fact that this isn't the same old Oklahoma State. We don't do the same things we did previously. We don't have the same check boxes anymore. We're recruiting bad A mamma jammas that are going to fit well in Stillwater. The Cowboy culture is going through a little bit of an evolutionary process. I think you're seeing that with some of the guys that we have coming into visits. You're seeing that with the commitments of the number one tackle in the state of Oklahoma, now the number one running back in the state of Oklahoma. Let's dream bigger and lock this state down, because getting guys like this does mean it's at least a possibility. Does it mean it's likely to happen? Maybe not, but you got to begin somewhere. We can go back to the Talon Shetron number 29 ranked class in the country days and realize that we didn't get that going this early. So timing is sometimes everything, and the timing of this seems absolutely huge for Oklahoma State, and it sends a message. So now when you see other big-time guys on campus, it's not just smoke and mirrors. It's not just another, oh, great, Oklahoma State might make another top 5. They might make another top 3. Now the conversation needs to creep into, this is a legitimate contender. Oklahoma State is a contender to land this guy. And that's a problem. It's a problem for OU, but it's also great for the state of Oklahoma. Bring back the spring game, you cowards. From spring games to making some money, sometimes you need to make sure you're managing money the right way. Monarch Money can help you do that. All of us at some point in time have looked in the bank account and wondered, where did my cash dollars go? Just between ordering, dining out, online shopping, and daily entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where your finances are going. Monarch Money is going to come in to be your personal CFO, to give you the full visibility for you to take over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, though. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money, and now you can start building more wealth. When you start using Monarch, you're going to realize just how much you were spending on things like food delivery, and now you can budget smarter and save even more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances today while building wealth for the future with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code to use is LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. Go there today, monarchmoney.com, for half off your first entire year of service. All right. Before we wrap this thing up here, I wanted to go live because this was a big deal. I should have went live over the Wyatt Hendrickson craziness, but things sometimes jump in the way. So I had some availability. I wanted to go live to do this because this is a massive get for Oklahoma State. The running back U conversation now continues to stay alive. And we also need to remember we have DJ Duggar coming in, right? And DJ feels like he's good enough to pull a Rodney Fields and be competitive year one right away. I do feel like the running back room is pretty stacked up this year, especially when you take into consideration the addition of Caleb Hicks from OU. Again, the storylines are writing themselves. If we can continue at this trajectory, I know words are hard for me. But let me know down in we got some live comments. Yeah, the recharge, right? We've seen the hashtag restoring order, and that's largely due to the Landon Clevelands of the world, which is why I feel like there is a direct correlation to this conversation. We didn't even get Landon Cleveland this early. We didn't get Michael Riles this early. I don't even think we got the commitment of Jalen Beckley this early. It might have been pretty close. And, that's why we had Jalen on the show, was to talk about not only why he chose Oklahoma State, but getting in on helping to solidify the class. The Restore Order crew. That's a lot of those Texas area DFW style of guys. Your Gunnar Wilsons, your Tamarick Johnsons, your Jonathan Agumadus, your Armstrong Notams, your Landon Clevelands, your David Kambongos. That group is likely going to stay together for quite some time because of the connections they were able to build throughout 7-on-7 and recruiting. And so they were able to share conversations. Well, this is what happened to me on my trip at Baylor. This is what happened to me on my trip at TCU, Alabama. It doesn't matter. To be able to convey amongst each other, amongst their peers, this is why Oklahoma State's the best fit. This is why I love this staff. This is the direction that they're leading. And I'm telling you guys, the NFL model that is in Stillwater has never been done before. It's never even been talked about before. And to hear it being permeating to the offensive side of the ball is what I think is the next step for Oklahoma State. Now, naturally, people are going to poke fun because we did have our worst conference season since 1994. We had our worst season ever under Mike Gundy. But does that not set up for a bigger rebound? And on top of the restoring order rebound season, now you get to have the conversation of Oklahoma State being in on the top talent in the state of Oklahoma and beyond. Because I really firmly believe that we're going to have a linebacker out of the state of Georgia become a Cowboy. And he's, getting visits set up already with your Bamas, your Ole Misses, your Georgias of the world. But Oklahoma State is squarely in this conversation. So once again, this isn't another idea, I guess you could say, of how cute it is that Oklahoma State made another top 5, made another top 3, right? That has happened. We've made a lot of big names, top 3, top 5, top 8s, but we don't typically get them. Right? Just call a spade a spade. Now we've got somebody like this that has connections probably deeper than your Jalen Beckleys, than your Landon Clevelands, not only to the state of Oklahoma, but the ability to converse with the other in-state talent it's new, right? And the drinking of Kool-Aid might need to start upticking now, right? And that's perhaps where I need to do my part of being less conservative about the 7-5 season. I still think that's safe, right? After a 3-win season, it's really hard to get up on the we're going to win 11, 12 games horse. But it's not hard when you're hearing about the NFL stuff on the defensive side of the ball and how this is being conducted like rookie mini camps and OTAs, and there's going to be cuts, and the cuts are going to be kind of scheduled the same way they do the preseason cuts in the NFL when they have to get down right to the 53-man roster. We're doing the same thing in Stillwater. That is new. That is worth the conversational piece. And that is something that these guys can talk about to the other recruits in the state and beyond. It's one thing for me, right, some big old goof troop to get behind a microphone and hoot and holler at the moon about how Oklahoma State is doing things differently. It's one thing for me to say it and do it. It's another thing for the recruits to do it. And I'm telling you, the conversations these guys have in 7-on-7 have a massive impact on where they decide to go. And we don't typically get somebody in at Oklahoma State this highly rated this early on. This is a changing of the guard. So the next time we see a consensus 4-star linebacker that has offers from Georgia and Texas and Alabama, the next time you see him making official visits or talking about Oklahoma State, now you can know that there's some viability to this being realistic. It's not just oh great, we're going to be in the top 3, top 5 anymore. We're in on some top talent in the nation that we haven't had accessibility to before. And I think this is going to change the conversation for a lot of high school coaches in the state of Texas as well. Even some of the coaches that maybe had some reluctancy in the past to send their guys to Stillwater because of personal grudges they had against Gundy or some of the past coaches. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Whatever animosity somebody may have had with Casey Dunn doesn't matter anymore. What does matter is where Oklahoma State now sits in the recruiting landscape. It is different. It hits different. Now it makes it easier to hoot and holler behind the microphone about it because there's substance behind it now. And now this substance of guys like Kaden Jones and Aiden Martin being able to go tell people in the state of Oklahoma at tournaments, at combines, at one-on-ones, this is why Oklahoma State is doing things different. And this is why you should join me in becoming a Cowboy. It's a good time to get pumped up. It's a good time to get excited because, yes, Kaden Batman Jones is committed to be a Cowboy. And I honestly, a lot of things could change, right? OU could reintroduce private jets and red carpet type of treatment. But I really think that it might be too late. If Corey Patterson isn't going anywhere, Doug Meacham, Trayson Wallace isn't going anywhere, Jeremy Smith, guys, give a shout out to Jeremy Smith at every turn because I don't think enough of us are aware of how instrumental he was in this. I think you could make the argument that none of this would have happened without Jeremy Smith. Without Jeremy Smith pleading to Corey Patterson or Trayson Wallace or Todd Bradford or whoever, we need to get back in on this Kaden Jones guy, right? Whatever we were doing previously with the old staff, it didn't work. It wasn't working. Throw it out and do something new because this is a once-in-a-generation type get. This is a Jeremy Smith style of get. This is a Tracy Moore, Talon Shetron style of acquisition. And thankfully, it worked. And thankfully, beyond Jeremy Smith, we were able to build a relationship with his dad and KD because of Coach Patterson. And Mike Gundy deserves a lot of credit for this. Regardless, again, of the Board of Regents fiasco, Mike Gundy could have stuck to his guns. He could have refused a different contract. He could have refused to fire anybody. He could have made things much more problematic than they even were. The national eyeballs were a little bit down because of last season, because of the regression of the offensive line. But now it's time to kind of kick this orange Kool-Aid back up. Getting somebody like this early is what is a game changer. Not just that we got him, but they're still doing the 7-on-7 tournaments. They're still doing the combines. They're still doing the private workout visits, unofficial visits, setting up official visits. This stuff is happening at a very opportune time for Oklahoma State. Now, of course, they're going to want to see some of this transfer onto the field. But if Oklahoma State has a massive season, some of these top line guys that have us in their top 10, top 8, whatever, they can be realistic possibilities to become Cowboys. It's time to get rid of it's great to be in the top 3s, top 5s. Those days are done. This is a new age in Cowboy recruiting. We are conveying things differently to recruits, and they're believing it, right? So they're able to make it tangible. When they come on a visit, everything they've heard, everything they've been pitched, they're starting to see it actually physically, tangibly make sense. And that is why the conversations about Oklahoma State are legitimate. Something is happening in Stillwater. It remains to be seen if it's going to be great, but something is cooking in Stillwater. Recruits are starting to kind of take notice of it. And now when you have a once-in-a-generational level talent to help spread the love, I expect Oklahoma State recruiting to get significantly better. Like we're talking where we should be. There's no disillusionment here, right? Oklahoma State fans aren't running around saying we should have a top 15 or even a top 20 class all day, every day. But when you're typically constantly in the top 25 and you're constantly in the Big 12 championship conversation with or without OU in Texas in the conference or not, eventually you got to kind of turn the corner and have something to present. And now we have that. And now we have it early enough for it to actually make a difference. It's one thing to get a guy late in the process, right? The late signing day flips, those were always fun. They were good for storylines. They were good for conversation, but they weren't good for building recruiting classes. I implore everybody, the Restore Order crew is the same crew that could potentially build around a Kaden Jones and Aiden Martin. It's time to uptick this conversation and have more fun with it because we're in living rooms that we haven't been in before. Point blank, period. It is what it is. Just like it is wonderful that all of you were able to swing in here for a live show. I probably don't do enough of these to be 100% realistic with you. So let me know down in the comment section if we should do more of these like live breaking scenarios. Until then, thank you all for tuning in for this little ditty here. I appreciate you. God bless. Go Pokes. It is so nice to say that Kaden Batman Jones is a Cowboy. And what this could potentially mean for the future, it could change the landscape and the expectations for our recruiting forever moving forward. All righty, y'all. You know the drill. Hit the like button if you like this thing. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, funny stuff, funky stuff. You're all of it. Do what you do. Hit the stars, leave a review. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.